Hey everyone, today we're looking at some deck shells for March of the Machine. Mom just finished up the early access and got some thoughts on how the decks might play and some cards might look. So yeah, hopefully you can find this helpful, for your pre-release or in particular when you start doing drafts on like Arena or MTGO or in person. So yeah, we'll just start with white-blue. I feel like this will probably be a fairly aggressive color pair. Probably try and lean into the Knight's energies. So, quick reminder: what we try and do here is not have more than two rares, 8 uncommons without duplicates, and then the rest are commons with an understanding that we try not to have too many duplicates. You might see in these decks just 2 commons that there's 2 of, and that's either for like power of the card, synergy within the deck, curve considerations. But all that to keep in mind, you know, are these cards going to be available or not? How deep is the color pair? And then what might work? And then we're treating this, for like best of 1 play. But I mean, there's obviously some considerations you should make for best of 3 in terms of cards for sideboard, maybe lands in the deck, as quote unquote speed of the format and how that might affect the way you're building. But given that we, just finished early access, it's tough to know all that. So with that in mind, I think 2 of the rares that are probably the strongest, and there's multiple that'll be very strong. This set is just full of rares and mythics that, B level and higher. But I think Zephyr Singer, especially with a lot of the vigilance creatures, you may be able to, after combat, convoke this out and give, many of your creatures that are not flying, and it's just a way to just end the game in, 1 or 2 turns. And then I think Guardian of Jirper is going to make sense, especially with a lot of the backups where you can, blink creatures, whether it's, something that's already been, let me find one. So I guess North's Wizard, you can get another Incubate token, and then a lot of these commons are good to blink, like the Sentinel to get our backup token, get our 2/2 with Knight of the Coalition. Yeah, just a lot of really cool options here. I will say, potentially there's an opportunity to, and I think we'll actually do this now, because our curve is relatively low. We'll take out the weird, and we'll actually put in the Shrub Knight, because I think we can play enough stuff at instant speed or second main. It'll probably work out. And then if we're looking at the mana value, there's a lot of 2s and 3s. With that being said, these dispersals are oftentimes going to be 1 mana, just huge tempo plays. Bounce the creature if they're trying to attack you back, so you're able to define what you want. It's really nice. Getting multiple lives with the champion that can help, with convoking, like, with Meet the Minds, bodies that can be pumped up or tapped with Wrath, pumped up with Marshal of Zalfir in the case of the champion itself. But yeah, it's your typical tempo-y type of white-blue deck. 2 cards that I do think will play well in this strategy. I mentioned one, the Dispersal. From early access, this was just consistently doing work. You need to have interaction, in particular because other players are going to have interaction and expecting bombs. And then 2, you may need to use it for a tempo play to finish someone off before they deploy their bomb. And then being able to potentially do that, at 1 mana, setting up potential double spells, it's just huge. And I think Pretty Champion is just going to be an all-star of the format. The evasion can help, take out some battles. The only battle in this version is Evasion of Belanon, which drops a 2/2 into play, and then if you take it out, you get a Glorious Anthem for your team, which is pretty nice. But you can use these for just like chump blocking with the 1/1, continue to fly with the 2/2, convoking. A lot of good potentials here. And I think these are 2 of the stronger gold cards, in particular because they're just 2 mana cost. But also I think the color pair will play well with giving stuff vigilance or having some instant sorceries you can play to use Wrath. And just pumping your the majority of your team with Marshall of Zalfir will be good. So yeah, this is a deck that I'm excited to play once we get into the real drafts with everybody. And yeah, that's white blue. I don't know if we're going down the line, the white color pairs. I think white black's going to be a little less aggressive, a little more on the controlling mid range side of things. In particular, I think what black is bringing is a lot of interaction and like grind to whites. Some of so white does lean a little more on the aggressive side, but as you'll see here, there are some controlling cards that definitely exist. Whether it's really low down the curve with like a Realm Breaker's Grasp, which is like an arrest variant, or like a cut short, or seal from existence. You're getting some controlling pieces until you can build up to some of your better late game, and whether that's just taking over with incubate tokens or a rare that you potentially got. There's a lot of options here to really just say, okay, stabilize, I'm turning the corner. We can go from there. So one of the rares, Invasion of Tovada, you can bring something back from your graveyard. So in particular, if you would like, maybe cycled your Alabaster Host Intercessor earlier, you could bring it back. Or if you've traded off with some creatures, or you've got this like Etch Host Doombringer that they got rid of, this was kind of holding on the fort for you. You can bring that back. Obviously, the flip side is just a game ender. You make all the tokens +1, +7 lifelink, which is great with the incubate tokens that have flipped, and you're making a spirit with flying every turn. And the Grafted Butcher is a lord for Phyrexians, which your deck's kind of leaning on, and it can come back. You sack something to just bring it back to only at a sorcery. But yeah, I think because of the curve of the deck and the degree of interaction you have, you're looking to get on board, just have some defensive speed, and set up for kind of a later game. So because the format is a little bomb heavy, you do have to have the interaction to take out your opponent's bombs, which most of them are creatures. There are some spells and battles, but most of them are creatures. So I wouldn't say this is a color pair that I'm as high on compared to white blue and some other color pairs, but it has potential. I think in general, black's probably regarded by most as the worst, or maybe next to worst color. It's probably going to show up in most of these color pairs as well. Okay, let's load up white-red, which I think is going to be one of the most aggressive, if not the most aggressive, color pair. Let you look it up for a moment. Okay, so I think backup's just going to be huge in this color pair, and you can see that we're looking at one of the two rares we put in, which is Boonbringer Valkyrie. I mean, it's a Baneslayer, but you can also make something else a Baneslayer Angel for a turn. So, backup one on one of your 2, 3, or 4 drops. They get flying first strike lifelink for the turn. Can really help pressure an opponent if it's like flipping a battle or getting some damage to them to get them even lower. And then you have this in reserve. It's like a 4/4 flying first strike lifelinker. And then Rampaging Raptor can come down and Trample Haste do its best Questing Beast impersonation, where it's gonna hopefully hit the opponent, and then when it does, maybe take out like a battle that you had played, which there's just one in this deck, but it's probably one of the better battles. It's Invasion of Mercadia. If we move that down, so you get a Tormenting Voice on 2, which is fine. Ideally, you're not playing it on 2. You're playing a creature, and then maybe another creature on 3, and then playing this on 4, and holding them some interaction and attacking and taking it down. And then you get just a late game, just win the game basically. Turns any of your cards into 1/1s, pumps up your tokens, which will probably be 1/1s in this deck, but there are a few ways to get other tokens, like we have the Nord Inquisitor to get like an incubate token, for example. But for the most part, you're using this to just like game kind of take over. And then the other uncommons, I feel like these probably in terms of just like curve considerations, you want to be higher on 2s and then 3s and have this kind of skewed curve, like we've seen in many aggressive decks in recent years. But some cards I think will play well. So one, need interaction, continue pushing these bodies. So I think Volcanic Spite. There's 2 of them here. This is fantastic. Instant speed 3 damage, and you can rummage in a way. Is everything this deck would want. And then I think the Sentinel, being able to back up on one of the many, 1 or 2 drops, and then be a 2/2 Vigi itself, helps you go a little wide, continue to push damage. And then we've got some other cards that have backup, like I think the Fearless Scald played well, and it's in our way to just like push damage that turn. Same with the Bowl Slinger to, push damage from creature, tap for that turn, have the Bowl Slinger up for next turn to attack and tap as well. So yeah, it's meant to be an aggressive deck and have just enough interaction to kind of tempt people out before they can, ideally take over with some of their bombs. If their deck has any. I think most decks will have some, just because there's a lot with the legend sheet and then the battles and everything. But yeah, we still have like a Seal from Existence, Stoke the Flames, Realm Breaker's Grasp, and these 2 Volcanic Spites is interaction that can take care of a variety of different types of threats, and then kind of can protect your stuff with like an Angelic Intervention. If like you have this Harried Artisan, you flipped and you're trying to beat down in the air with a 3/4 flyer, or if you have like your Valkyrie or Raptor, something like that. So yeah, I think this deck's just going to try and curve out on people. So yeah, that's White Red. Last white deck, White Green, which looks like it's going to care about counters and some of the incubate stuff. So with that in mind, I think Dust Legion Duelist makes a ton of sense, because you're going to be putting counters on creatures and just let you draw into more action. You put a counter on it, draw a card, and then Doomscar Warrior. Ideally, you can 2-drop into 3-drop into this, and you just back up on a creature and you just deal damage to the player, and maybe draw a creature or a land card right then and already get your 2-for-1. But great body, great stats. If it has backup on itself, it's a 5/4 trample with that ability, which should play pretty well. In terms of uncommons, I think this is one of the best battles in the set, Invasion of Moog. All your team is +1 on counter, and then when you flip this, you get a Alchemize, Lunarch Veteran, basically, where at your end step put a +1 counter on a creature you control. So you can flip it and then have this back on defense, unless you don't get attacked back too hard. And then yeah, I think the 2-drops play really well together here in terms of wanting to have creatures and go wide. Like Shanna's going to get bumped up, your Brawler's going to get counters. Sometimes when you back up on another creature, Brawler gets a counter as well. You can do some good stuff. And then, you do need to protect your creatures, like having the Angelic Intervention or Aerial Boost with Convoke to use a spell tapped out are really nice. And then you have some creatures with backup, like we have the Sentinel Gang, given the number of 2s, you want to be pressuring. You have the, Chomping Kavu as well to keep pressuring. And the Doomscar Warrior, like we said. And then enough interaction with, double Cosmic Hunger, Seal from Existence, kind of protect with the intervention, and the boost, like we said. So yeah, you're maybe this could use 1 or 2 more interaction spells. We are limited to just, 2 times of any common. So yeah, maybe we could like get rid of a Sentinel for, another Grasp or something potentially. But you don't want to overload. You need to have creatures and kind of pressure advantage. So yeah, this is a deck that's played well, but isn't as good on defense, even though it has some creatures with like Vigilance. it does ask you to have a game plan and try and enact it. We're going to break this up into 2 parts. So here's our last one for part 1. I think that's probably going to be one of the more controlling types of decks in the format. Blue-black, in particular because there's this good interaction and good value as you kind of look throughout the deck and the cards that were chosen for it. You can just get a damage when you can with some flyers and just try and kill cards that matter or invalidate other ones with, strong enough ground forces and kind of go from there. Yeah, so you've got, because there's a lot of non-creature spells you'll be playing, I think the Chromos Siege Shark makes a lot of sense. Just to get, some more incubates to flip. And then this is probably going to be one of the best rares. It's a Wrath that can then turn into a creature that was a challenge to block, particularly if you have, some bounce spells like the Dispersal, or if they try and blow you out, having like a Cyber Cryptomancer to give it hexproof. It's really nice. And then you can just kind of grind people out. Also, a lot of these are 2-for-1s, like the Weird, the Thawid, the Drinker, Invasion of Amonkhet, Halo Forger, Preen Champion, Isaac Ataxis. A lot of 2-for-1s. Enough creatures where you still should be able to play it instant speed with Meeting the Minds, and Optimus pay it for like 0 to 2 mana, tapping some other stuff. And then, good enough defensive speed. It's kind of a little low in the 1 and 2 drops, but you kind of catch up with your interaction and your other like 5 drops, or just double spelling with, 2 drop and a 3 drop. So yeah, I think it's a deck that I'm excited to kind of see hit real players, in the games, on Arena, MTGO in person. And yeah, hope you enjoyed part 1, and feel free to check back for part 2 in a little bit.